Yeah, I think that's the record that, certainly ushered in, I think, what was truly Alter Bridge. One Day Remains to me was essentially, because it was recorded so quickly after we had become a band. I mean, I think we'd only been a band for a few months when that record was made, so we just hadn't had time to evolve. So with Blackbird, we toured the world and got to know one another, and really, I think as writers, especially between Mark and I, there started to be a dynamic established that was utilized on the Blackbird record. So yeah, I think that was probably, in a lot of ways, some people look at it as the first like real Alter Bridge record. It's fascinating to see that after 15 years, just how much some of those songs still resonate. The title track being the main one. We knew when we wrote that song that we'd kind of stumbled onto something special, but I don't think we had any idea that 15 years from that point, people would still be talking about it, and we'd still be seeing people get tattoos of the Blackbird on their body, or the lyrics from the song. So yeah, it's definitely carried a lot more weight than we initially realized. Oh, I think it was to be expected. I think we would have been naive not to have known those comparisons were coming. That's just kind of how it works, especially when they were such a big band. At least here in the United States, they were massive, and so yeah, that was inevitable. And I think that was the beauty of doing the second record, of making Blackbird, is we realized, okay, now we need to really establish who we are and what this is relative to where everybody came from. And so it was a great challenge. It was something that we really took seriously and worked really, really hard at, and still work hard at it. We still take writing and making records very seriously and put a lot into it. Well, I think with this record, with Pawns and Kings, we didn't want it to be overproduced, and we wanted it to be very, very, I guess, crystallized in a lot of ways sonically, and make sure there wasn't too much going on, a lot of layering and stuff, which can make a record denser and can make it sometimes, interestingly enough, not quite as aggressive. So we wanted to make sure that the riffs and the kind of the core of the song was at a certain level before we committed to recording it. So yeah, I think that there are certainly elements from, I think with Fortress, it really started with Blackbird, technically, the idea of the epic, the song that was longer than 6 minutes, and really taking the listener on a journey. And there are a few of those songs on this record, maybe more than usual. And so that was a lot of fun for us. It's because we love putting those epics together and taking the listener on a journey. Yeah, it's funny how that works, right? It's funny, those songs that you get immediately. You listen to one or two times, and you're like, oh, I love that song. Then before you know it, you burn out on it. And so that's something, as a writer, you learn over the years. Like, sometimes challenge the listener a little bit, put a certain level of unpredictability into the arrangement, into the song, and those tend to be the songs that grow on you, and then you love for a long period. Yeah, it was, it's interesting because that was a song that almost didn't make the record. It was a song that I had kind of tucked away in the demos I was working on before I presented them to the band. And when we were all done, putting up our demos, Mark and I, our producer's like, well, do you have anything else? And so I had, this thing on all my files, and I played it for him. He's like, well, that's going on the record. He really liked it. And so it's interesting that ended up being the title track. You just never know. The title came from, it's sometimes when you're writing, I'll sit down with a guitar, or Mark, when he sits down with a guitar, you'll just kind of start playing an idea, and then a melody will come into your psyche, and you'll just start singing something. You really won't know what it means or where it comes from. And for me, I remember just singing, for all of the hope that it brings, and though we're pawns, we could be kings. And I didn't know really at the moment what that meant. I was like, that's interesting. It has a nice ring to it. And then as you explore it and you start to develop the lyric, it starts to have a narrative. And so for me personally, it's a song of empowerment. It's the idea of, the first could be last. It's a battle cry for the underdog, and I think that that's a theme that's very universal, and people seem to relate to that. And so we felt like that would be an appropriate title for the record. Yeah, the song title always comes, at least for us, always comes first. We never have sat down and said, okay, we're going to call this record Fortress, and we're going to write a song called Fortress. It's never that way. It's always the song comes first, and then once you kind of follow your muse, your inspiration, and the universe kind of helps you mold the tracks, then you extract the meaning from the overall body of work, and then convey that with the album title. That's how we do it. It was a little different. It was more akin to what we started doing on Walk the Sky, where Mark and I would separately demo ideas before presenting them to the band or to each other, and so that's been a little bit of a newer realm for us. But overall, it's still the same filtration system. It's still, you present an idea, and then if your producer and your bandmates like it, then it moves on to the next step, and then you take it to pre-production and whatnot. So it's still, it's still a very a high level of critique that goes into a song making the cut. It's funny because I've been playing solos really since Blackbird, and a lot of times people don't know how many of the solos I'm actually doing. It kind of makes me chuckle at this point, and I don't think people realize till they go to the show and like, oh, he's playing a lot more solos than I thought. I thought he was just a rhythm guitar player. But yeah, Mark was very understanding in the beginning. He was like, oh, this guy came up as a lead guitar player like myself, and so he was like, why don't we both play lead guitar? And so that's wonderful, because I do enjoy it a lot, and especially now that as the years have gone on, Mark has really started to embrace being a lead vocalist as well. So it's the same trade-off where it's like, Mark, you should definitely sing a song, at least one song on every record, because you love it and the fans love it, and I love it because I get to take a break. So it's perfect. No, it's not. I'm not going to claim that it is. For me, everything that I put my and I'm sure Mark will probably say the same thing. We don't phone it in with anything we do. So if I'm starting to work on a solo record, that is my primary focus. And I can understand how a fan might think that. They might think, oh, well, they're tapping out, but you're dealing with two guys. Mark and I were kind of joking about it the other day. We were like, do you realize in the last X amount of years we've combined made 17 records? And it's like, wow. I mean, I think it's just a testament to the fact that Mark and I both still really love to write. And when the day comes when we don't enjoy it anymore, then yeah, I could understand a fan thinking, oh, they've tapped out. But that doesn't, at least for me, I'll speak for myself. I'm not feeling that coming on anytime soon. I don't know how Mark decides. For me, it's really easy because the Alter Bridge sound is very specific. So a riff like Silver Tongue, which I knew was not going to fit in my solo band, or the riff on Pawns and Kings, I knew was not going to fit in my solo band. So it's pretty easy for me to make that distinction, and none of it will work with Slash, because Slash is a riff master, so I'm not going to present a riff to Slash. He comes in with a really wonderful music bed demo, and then I put a vocal and a melody and a lyric over top of that, so it's a different dynamic writing wise. But yeah, For me, fortunately, it's pretty easy. I don't know. With Tremonti, I could see it maybe being a little different because to me, Tremonti and Alter Bridge are, sometimes the lines are kind of blurred. They're very similar. So I think that that would be an interesting question for him, how he decides. It's hard. I mean, I guess I could do it. I could try. It's Fable the Silent Sons, probably one for me. Boy, I guess I do like This Is War. I like the opening track. And I like Sin After Sin. I think that's a really cool riff that Mark came up with. I enjoy that one. I would probably, Fortress is my favorite. Then I would probably pick, oh geez, I have no idea. I'm terrible at this. I would definitely say Fortress is probably my top. That's the top of the list for me. And Blackbird. For number 3, I don't know. Maybe this record, but you'll ask me that in 10 years, and then I'll be able to give you a good answer. Because for me, it's a matter of having time in between records. Because you're right, an artist will always think the thing they just did might be more relevant than it actually is. So I like to have distance before making those crazy claims. Yeah, that can happen. Yeah, you definitely can get. Well, that's when you know if a song's good as a musician, is if it has shelf life and you can play it over and over and not get bored with it. But even songs that there are songs that fans absolutely love and we can't not play in the set. That if you were to ask each and every one of us, we've played it so many times, you probably are like, yeah, I always wonder that with bands who've had really long careers, who've been playing songs like the Rolling Stones, like. I have to wonder if they get tired of playing songs that they wrote in the 1960s. Even though it's a great song, you've just played it thousands of times, and it might get a little redundant. No, we're trying to balance it, and we haven't always done the best job at that. I feel like there was a long time where. And people started to point it out to us. Our manager, when he came into the realm a few years ago, was like, you realize how many songs you always play from Blackbird, and that really should change. So we started trying to get better at mixing it up a little bit. But that you bring up a great point. Like, because we didn't get to tour extensively on Walk the Sky, we should still have a fair amount of those songs in there, just because we never got to play a lot of them, or people never got to hear a lot of them live. So we'll definitely take that into consideration. That's a great point. It's a good question. I don't know. I think it's we're still so in the thick of this record. Maybe we'll have some brilliant idea that will help excite us to create something maybe that we normally wouldn't have. But with that said, we also have come to realize with our fan base that there's a certain thing they expect from us and want from us, and we're not one of those bands who, we can make records with a certain amount of twists and turns and dynamics and everything, but we also are very aware that our fan base, they expect certain things. They want the heavy riff. They want the melody that they can sing along with. So we always have to balance that. You're not going to hear us doing a reggae record anytime soon. Well, interestingly enough, I love Rachmaninoff, so I went to the symphony the other night and saw the symphony perform his second symphony. So I'm really on a Rachmaninoff phase. But before that, I was all summer long listening to George Harrison and the Beatles. So I'm a big Beatles fan, and I've really come to appreciate George Harrison. But as far as like contemporary records, things that I'm listening to and spending a lot of time with, I really like what Devin Townsend's been doing recently. I think he's really super talented, and I have a great respect for him.
Rockland Radio. Bester Rock and Pop.